Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. I can't say that I've talked a ton of college basketball the last couple of months. Been a lot of football, a lot of baseball, a lot of other stuff, and obviously we've gotten our Terps in. But this is the week I'm going to start stretching it out as we get closer now with bracketology around the corner and March Madness around the corner. No one knows more than this guy, and I'm going to be bringing in all of my big dogs here. He is the longtime five-star camp guru. You can find him out at Leigh Klein on Twitter. He's now an adjunct professor at Mount St. Mary in New York, not Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg. He also does a Friday night radio show called That Bracket Show, and you can find him out at LeighAllenKlein.com as well. Leigh Klein joins us yet again. What's going on, man? It's been a little while since you and I got together, and certainly not a great week to talk Terps with what happened at Penn State and then obviously the loss to Michigan, but a good Terps team, and I think from afar, I know you've watched Mark Turgeon's career, and you watch all these coaches and the line of work you've been in. This is sort of the real time now. Tournament around the corner. Where are you going to get seated, and how are you going to play after St. Patrick's Day?
Absolutely, and it's great to be back on, Nestor. And this Terps team, it's like the girl with the curl. I mean, when she looks good, she looks really good, and sometimes the lighting's bad, like the old Seinfeld, and you're like, ooh, what is going on here? Hard team. It's really a hard team. You start to get bullish on them, and you see the pieces, two bigs and a variety of perimeter players and youth and talent, and you start saying, hey, this team could really go far. But consistency hasn't been a strong point. They're a tournament team. Can they play into a second weekend? That's what we're about to find out here.
Well, you say the bigs, and I think the show has to begin with Fernando, and once we get into playoff time, it's going to be about guard play and guard shooting and shot selection and ball distribution and who's going to get doubled. Fernando walks into most gyms. He's going to get doubled. They're going to make the Terps play left-handed, and then it becomes about either him or the rest of them. And on nights when he's not so good and when Cowan can't shoot the ball, they lose to good teams, and Michigan certainly was that on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you see the talent, with Smith and Wiggins and Ayala, like this freshman class, which at times can dazzle. I mean, I watched a couple weeks back, when they beat Iowa, during stretches of that game, I mean, Maryland looked as good as anybody in the country, but then they let Iowa back in the game, and, and gave Iowa a chance to actually come out with a victory. So it's just, as you point out, when Cowan shoots the ball really well and you get some contributions from some of the other perimeter players, really difficult team to match up with because of, while Bruno Fernando does not get a ton of, he doesn't, not a lot of stuff run for him, not a lot of opportunities. He's able to be such a difference maker on the boards and defensively and do the other things that when they get the scoring from the perimeter, now all of a sudden they really seem balanced because if you extend too far out on the shooters, then they're going to pound it inside, and Fernando and Smith are going to be able to find success there.
How important in your mind is it that they skip out on the Thursday game and make a little later trip to Chicago? And then how important is it that they play well next weekend in Chicago at all? I mean, at some point you want them to play well and look good and win games. We'll have a chance to close things out against Minnesota at the end of the week on Friday night. But in getting ready for the Big Ten, I mean, to your point, for the last 6-7 weeks, we thought, well, they'll take Thursday off. I mean, you want to get into the double bye because you don't want to be a part of that. And they're sort of teetering right now. They've sort of, as you've pointed out, sort of backed themselves into this position.
Here's the thing about this team. I think it's important for them to stay in that 4-5 conversation. Like, you don't want to be in the tournament as this isn't a team that wants to play in the 7-10 game. I just don't think that's a good recipe, or the 8-9 game. I think they got to find a way to move up, and that requires playing well here to maybe get the double bye and win a game, and now all of a sudden they could get into that 5-seed conversation and be able to have an easier opportunity to win their first game in the tournament and maybe get to a Sweet 16. I mean, I think that's the goal here for this team, is to be a Sweet 16 team, and they have Sweet 16 talent. But
Well, what makes
they
it
have
even
to
harder on
start
Turgeon
making
if they
it
don't get there then,
easier.
right? I mean, literally, right? I mean, they have Sweet 16 talent, and yet they go into Penn State and they look like they're asleep. They go up to New York for what was supposed to be a home game, and they sleepwalk through Illinois, losing to Seton Hall. You know, it just has, they've, to your point, looked awful against bad teams, and that's a little disconcerting, I think, for any program, because if they held serve and won those games, they'd probably be in the top 10 right now, right?
I agree. I mean, they lost 6 out of their last 11. They've got this opportunity Friday against Minnesota to sort of get back on the winning ways, start feeling good again. But you forget that when you look at this nucleus of guys that play, that they're playing seven or eight of their rotation are freshmen and sophomores. So there's that inexperience. There's guys facing adversity that they haven't faced before at the speed of the game, that they're just not making the adjustments consistently. And that's where it's at. But I do think there's some pressure. I mean, we're not talking like job pressure. There's some pressure on Mark Turgeon to get this team going in the right direction, to win an NCAA tournament game, to start moving and establishing this program towards that top part of the conference. I think this is the time. I mean, look, the bottom, I mean, you see Rutgers is coming. You see that Michigan State, they're not going anywhere. Purdue has been on this, incredible run. I think this is the time that Maryland has the pressure to establish itself to that top part of the conference by winning NCAA tournament games, or else anything can happen. Indiana's not going to be down for long. Ohio State, they're not, these teams are not going to be down for long. And if Maryland doesn't step up, you're going to find out pretty quick that in a year or two, they're going to be stuck in that can't get to the top scenario. This is their opportunity.
Getting to the top is part of having Bruno Fernando around, and he is like the NFL, not for long, right? Like this will be the last chance for him, and you have a special player. You have a guy who a lot of people think is going to be a lottery pick, but you also have a guy that did not dominate against Michigan, did not get out of bed against Penn State. So I think the jury's out on him. He's playing for a lot of money at this point, and certainly we would think this is his last time through, much like with Diamond Stone and other. When you have a player like that, you want to make the most of that, and that again is about after St. Patrick's Day, not about a sleepy night at State College, right?
There's two things. I mean, you've got this really good kid, originally from Angola, trying to set up himself and his family for a very long time, through this opportunity. The hard thing is that things have changed in the NBA, that no longer, being a 6'10" post player that does a really good job defensively and rebounding, that's not quite enough anymore, right? So the question of whether or not Bruno stays or goes, I think at some part is this question of his role, and is he going to be able to expand his game there at Maryland? Can he continue to expand his game and grow as an offensive player? Including his shooting range and his ability to, hit shots from distance and so on. So he's improved his shooting percentage. I'm sure that a lot of people would like to see him improve his range and show the ability to hit shots 15, 18, 20 feet out, so that that's the way, the spacing part of it, that's the way the game is played in the NBA. And so I think there's some pressure there, and we'll see. We don't have to put the cart before the horse. We got some games still left to be played, and he has this opportunity with the national stage to be able to show that he's ready to step in and play big minutes in the NBA. But I do think that he has more to show for NBA success and lottery level success, because not so much it's, I don't want to say it's his fault. It's just the way the game has changed. You, as a 6'10" big, need to be able to show more than what those before him have had to do in the past.
Leigh Klein is here. You can follow him, Leigh Allen Klein, out on Twitter. Long time at five-star basketball camps, now an adjunct professor at Mount St. Mary in New York, as well as the host of That Bracket Show. Find him out at Leigh Allen, A-L-A-N, Klein, K-L-E-I-N, for all the basketball insights, including pictures of Pat Scarry up on the front of your Twitter. You've been doing this a long time, and maybe this is a good opportunity for you to stretch out and tell me more about how things have changed in the worlds of the Bruno Fernando and a big kid from Angola that can come over to Florida, hang out at IMG, be invested in, be believed in, get himself into a university. Boy, things weren't like that 30 years ago, right? Like, it's just changed so much, the international scope of basketball and how a kid like Bruno Fernando finds himself at College Park.
No question about it. I mean, basketball's become a global game. The NBA's led the way there. And the trickle-down, I mean, we've seen. And when we talk about the NBA leading the way, if we take a step back and you saw guys like Amadou Gallo-Fall, who's now head of NBA Africa, but, you know, amongst the first to send players like Jean Ajap and so on from Senegal to the United States for opportunities where he went to Oak Hill and then play college. And that is, you know, blazed the path for others to follow. And guys like Masai, who's, you know, the GM of Toronto, the Raptors, who, again, made opportunities available for kids from Nigeria to come to the U.S. to play high school and then college. And it's really opened up the floodgates now, 15, 20 years later, where there's just so much opportunity. And amongst that, let's not underestimate the development of Canada and Canadian basketball and what a factor that's been. I mean, you saw this Maryland team lose last week to Michigan, and Michigan's best player, you know, they're freshmen from Canada. You saw R.J. Barrett leading Duke, again, another standout from Canada. So it's a global game, and as much of anything, the benefactors of the globalization of the game, probably as much as anyone, has been college basketball, because the talent, while we've had this, you know, and we could get into a whole conversation about development here in the U.S. and all of that. We won't go there. But as we've seen, let's say...
I do that with soccer all the time. We're always trying to figure it out with soccer, right? I mean, this is the place where the world was trying to keep up with us in basketball, right? It's sort of the other way around, the import-export factor, right?
Absolutely. So, but when we look at it and we see, you know, players one and done and you know, this, whether or not, you know, kids are able to contribute, what's masked some of the issues why quality of play has not dipped is because of globalization, where kids from around the world are able to step in here and play college basketball at such a high level. We've seen it from kids from Australia. We've seen it from all over, kids from all over. And that in college basketball has been able to reap the reward of high quality play with that. And so it's been a big factor. We'll see, you know, a lot of changes on its way, right? With basketball, everything from one and done and all these different things. In the meantime, we get to enjoy the, you know, where the game is at and the way the rules have changed to increase scoring. And we'll see other, you know, I'd like to see more NBA style rules, shot clock, taking away live ball timeouts, things like that to improve the speed of college basketball, but the quality of it's definitely been able to stay to, you know, to a high level, if not the level it was once, because of globalization.
Where are we with the FBI stuff and coming after the coaches? I mean, we heard all about that. Now it's all quiet again. And obviously with this guy running the country every day, there's another drama. But I remember everyone running for cover, right? Like with the FBI and what's going to happen. The FBI's got bigger fish to fry than putting basketball coaches in prison at this point. But it's still sort of looming, you know, underneath of all of this. And again, I haven't heard much about that lately, right?
It's not gone away. So there's another trial, you know, so when this next set of trials, and there's been talk about coaches being subpoenaed and all of that, it hasn't gone away. You won't hear about it until after the tournament and that part of things. But it hasn't gone away, and I agree with you. I mean, we've got a lot bigger issues in America than trying to lock up college coaches for maybe funneling money or part of this vertical system to get money to prospects to influence what college they go to and what agents they sign with and so on.
Or what shoes they're wearing that they step through, in the middle of the biggest basketball.
In a terrible, and by the way, basketball performance shoes could not be at a lower level because nobody's wearing basketball shoes outside of playing on the court. The basketball shoe is becoming the cleat because fashions change. It's just a whole different thing. But to get to the point, this hasn't gone away yet. There's going to be a fall guy. I don't know who it is. I've got no inside information there, but somebody's going to take the major hit. There's going to be the same way the first time around it was Pitino being the target and the fall guy. There's somebody the second time around that's going to go and take the hit. It's going to take, quote unquote, the bullets for this impropriety, so that it can sort of close the book and transition to this next era, this next thing with college sports. And, we'll see this. There's this iteration that could be there in which the top players, the Bruno Fernandos of the future, may end up not going to a Maryland or not going to university for a short stint. And that might be okay too. So we'll see this, but somebody's going to take the bullets this spring, and I'm not sure exactly who it is, but you'll be reading about it soon.
Leigh Allen Klein can be followed out on Twitter at Leigh Allen Klein. He, of course, a former five-star basketball camp, now doing That Bracket show. It's about that bracket time, so I'm doing some basketball around here, mixing it in with our baseball and our Ravens coverage. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Lightbridge Health Sports Medicine Institute at Foundry Row in Owings Mills. They are the professionals treating concussion and head-related injuries. We had Dr. Kevin Crutchfield on last week. Dr. Craig Bennett's going to join me this week. I'm going to get my Stan Stasiak tennis elbow thing out. And he'll be on Wednesday doing orthopedics. They are in the state-of-the-art facility in Owings Mills. They're right in Foundry Row, and they're there for you, your family, your children that may play sports. God forbid you have a concussion or a head-related injury. And my wife, after cancer, trying to get back out to running and doing a half marathon, they partner with the folks at Parisi. So we're going to be telling you a lot more about that. And Cal Ripken looks great on those billboards and in our ads as well. Lightbridge Health Sports Medicine Institute in Owings Mills. They are our sponsor. We're going to be telling you about the new game plan. Also, our friends at Strategic Factory, marketing, printing, promotional goods, all with the strategy, all in one shop. Hats, shirts, cups, things, giveaways, but more than that, things that power your business and make your business better, and it makes it a good investment to do that kind of marketing. It is Strategic Factory. We had Keith Miller on the show from South Africa earlier. I'm going all international here this week. Leigh Klein doing basketball here. Leigh, I'm going to tell you, this summer, my wife and I went out to Yellowstone Park, and we flew through Boise. We went through the park and up north in Big Sky into Missoula to see Pearl Jam. And then I had a flight out of Spokane, Washington. And I had never been to Spokane, Washington. I thought, this is great. We'll go into Spokane. And I think, all right, what's from Spokane? Apples and, oh, that's right, that basketball program. And they're number one again. And at some point, they'll climb the tree. But it had been a little while since I had really sort of gone through the whole few resume there and looked at it. This has been 20 years. I mean, it's kind of crazy, and here they are again as the one. I remember DePaul a million years ago, and I know you do. There was a little bit of a paper lion with Mark Aguirre, and they'd be 28-1 every year and get bounced at. At some point, Gonzaga needs to win a championship, but it is fascinating to see their name consistently above Virginia, Duke, and Kentucky, and North Carolina, and Michigan State, all these other sort of glory programs. And nice to see Marquette. Marquette played a big game over the weekend. I saw a little bit of that in Top 10. I know Kevin Burns happy about that to honor the legends of Milwaukee. But Gonzaga, this is an incredible story for college sports, I think, and it continues on, and you look up and they're number one again.
Well, I think this is the year. If not this year, I don't know when, but this Gonzaga team, I think, well, we'll put one little asterisk on, what level, what version of Duke will we see going into the NCAA tournament, because that's kind of the X factor when you have when those three guys are on the court. it's hard to beat them. That's 3 top 5 picks and so on. But
we'll give him a shoe. Let's start with that.
This Gonzaga team, though, is got all the ingredients. They've got the size. I think they're, until you break through, and that was getting into the championship game a couple of years ago. Until you break through, you're always sort of, one level, like leveling up. Now, I think the next level up is winning a title, and I think they've got everything in place to do so. And it's amazing to think about. Hey, I remember when Few was the assistant there, and hey, that's when Terps were playing Duke in the Final Four and so on. And Don Munson was the coach, and did basketball really save the university? They like to say that the influence what basketball did and got Gonzaga on the map, and really helped the school be. Get back applications and all of that.
Could that have happened anywhere, Leigh? I mean, you were around all of the schools, all of the money, all the kids, all the shoes, all the people involved. It happened at Georgetown, right? Which on the East Coast, but to happen, and the Pac-10 is the worst conference in the country, right? I mean, not even a team in the top 25. I'm wondering, could that have happened anywhere? Is that when you go back and look at the history of how it happened and where they are in 2 decades later, it really is an astonishing story, much more so than Duke, I think, that was always kind of in this basketball conference doing this basketball thing and always sort of butting its heads from the early days with the States and the Carolinas and the Virginias and the Hollands and the UCLAs of the East and Lefty and all that. Gonzaga didn't have any of that. That's what the story's so unique to me, because it doesn't feel like it's tied to many other things over 20 years,
Right. It didn't have history. It didn't have major conference. And it didn't make the jump, right?
It doesn't even have geography. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
How do you get a kid to come play there?
None of the ingredients. None of the ingredients for it to be, to be this big power that it's been able to do. But, it does get large investment into the program now, which warrants it. And now, we'll see that can it win a national title, which has been sort of the thing outside of the power conferences. I mean, what separated, and the Big East being sort of the exception, but what separated the top level conferences from everybody else has been their ability to continually win championships. And Gonzaga has a chance to kind of shatter through the ceiling there, and we'll see if they can do so. And this is sort of, this is the year for that to happen. And then we'll see if, what happens. A lot of the dominoes are going to fall here with jobs and the rest of it. And they'll, you can't take for granted that this is going to happen year in, year out. So if Gonzaga doesn't break through, who knows what's going to happen? Who gets the UCLA job, how that shuffles the cards as far as the top coaches and what happens moving forward. But the Pac-12 and the West Coast isn't going to be down like this the way it is, the way that it's been. And some of that, if you sort of, there have been recent articles about the revenue distribution of the Pac-12 by being a wholly owned conference, for media rights. And so there's a lot of factors that have helped Gonzaga continue their dominance. They've got to cash in while they can, or else tables could end up turning. You could end up with the right coach at UCLA, and now Gonzaga, just being a nice story, but not a national contender.
Leigh Klein can be found out at Leigh Allen Klein. Also, the That Bracket Show. Everybody about That Bracket Show, because, that's really what's coming up here next couple of weeks. This is your time of the year, Leigh.
This is it. This is the time where you roll up the sleeves, you learn all the nicknames of all these fun schools that you don't get much of an opportunity to talk about other times of the year. And it's about, we got championship week this week, which is, already bids being crowned, teams in the dance, and then we've got just this magical ride, this roller coaster that we wait, and next thing you know, we lift from the ride since April, and so it's a lot of fun.
Hey, pleasure to have you on. It's been a little while. Hope to grab you a little later on in the month, and hope that the Terps are playing sometime after St. Patrick's Day in a meaningful way. To your point, it's Sweet 16 or bust around here for the fan base, and certainly high expectations created by a top 25 team this year. Leigh Klein can be found out on Twitter and out at That Bracket Show as he gets ready for all things bracketology. You can find me out on the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Listen to what you want, when you want. The kids call it podcasting. The morning newspaper delivers digitally to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, as well as our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel Park. Nasty at WNST.net and out on WNST.net all week long. We are celebrating my dad's 100th birthday on March 5th, 1919. He was born, so there will be some old stories and cool stuff to check out on all of our social media. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.